Hey, it's Mary with a new technique video. This is for a jogless color change and it uses a knit two together technique. So let me show you how this works. So I just want to point out that I make my color changes before the white needle, regardless of what the numbers say on the machine itself. And I'll be referring to that white needle as the number one needle. So to begin the color change, we are going to cut our working yarn and place the tail between the last needle and the first needle. Then we'll go ahead and insert our new yarn color, making sure it falls into the same place as the other tail between the last needle and the first needle. And I hold the tail a little bit just to make sure we don't drop any stitches in that area. Now we're going to crank around until that number one needle comes up just before the yarn guide. So this technique is knitting two stitches together, and we're going to knit the first stitch of the new color with the previous row stitch, which is right here. So to do that, we insert our loom hook into that stitch and pull it back while the machine advances, and that needle will pop up. So by pulling that stitch back, we're keeping the stitch on the hook for one more row. Here's what it looks like from a different angle. You can see that stitch is still on the machine. Now as it passes to the right of the yarn guide, you'll notice that at the bottom of the needle there is the green stitch. That's our previous row stitch that we wanted to keep on the machine. The stitch in the middle is our color change row, and the new stitch is being formed in the hook. So you'll see the last stitch has one green stitch around it, and our number one needle will have two, which is our green and our pink, and those two stitches will be knit together in the next round. So I've knit a few rows, and now I'm going to address the tails. You'll notice that stitch and this stitch are quite loose. These are where the two tails are. So all I'm going to do is tug on those tails just a little bit to remove the slack in those stitches. I'm not trying to pull the stitches together, the neighboring stitches. I just want to remove the slack. I'll tie my knot and then trim the tails. So let's look at this color change again. I'm ready to make a change. I'm going to cut my yarn, make sure it goes between the last needle and the first needle, insert my new color between the last needle and the first needle, and I'll advance while holding the tails a little bit. I'll let those fall and keep advancing the machine until that first needle pops up to the left of the yarn guide. That's our last needle. Here's our first needle. So I'm going to insert my loom hook, pull back on the stitch while cranking, let that needle pop up, and it keeps that stitch on the machine. And now I'm going to knit for about 4 or 5 rows. Now I can go ahead and remove the slack by pulling on the tails and then make a knot. So here's the knitted piece off the machine, and you can see right in the middle is where our color change is happening. And this is very similar to the results that you get when doing this same technique in hand knitting. So instead of tying the knot on the machine, you could also do it off the machine as well. Or if you don't like how these knots are turning out, you can always undo the knot and readjust the tension on the tails. So I'll show you a hat that I've done recently where I've used this color change and it's invisible. You can't tell where the color change was done using this method. And I've been doing this method now for a while. I've been trying it out and I really like it for this type of color change where you've kind of got big sections. It does not work as well when you have less than 3 rows of a color. This is similar to the slip stitch technique. However, I feel that the machine work is much easier to do and you're able to tie the knots while it's still on the machine. And it has a great finished look. So give this technique a try and let me know what you think. If you have any questions, feel free to email me. Don't forget to like and subscribe to my channel for more circular knitting machine tutorials. Thanks for watching.